All right, welcome. We're going to talk about a progression into hip key. I like to start hip keys for new students pretty early on in their aerial journey because they can be kind of tricky. And I can remember when I was learning hip keys that they were not the easiest, simply because they weren't broke down the way I'm going to teach you here. So first, make sure your tail is in the back, and then you're going to make sure your fabric is on one side. Then you're going to take the same side leg by the fabric and you're going to go opposite. So you're going to make sure you're scissoring the legs. So I'm going to go ahead and exaggerate this now. So I just exaggerated my scissor stance. So from there, my back foot is going to scoop the fabric from the top of the foot, and you're going to grab the fabric that's on top of the foot, slide it up to your bottom, to your hip. You can step down on that foot. Now you're going to lift that knee up. Because what we want to do is we want to make sure this fabric stays over our hip. I call this your haunch. This is your haunch. So you want to keep it over that haunch. And so you can see how I'm kind of leaning sideways to make that happen. When you do that, you do have to balance a little bit here. You're going to bring both hands to the side on the fabric. And what you're going to do is you're going to slide it down, pulling resistance forward because it's giving me resistance right here. And then I'm going to tuck my knees in. As I bend, tuck, and go side. Okay? So that's it right there. From there, you can just try and come to your feet. All right, so that would be the first thing that I would work on trying to get the hip key. Simply because it's gonna show you and help you understand how the fabric is wrapped around your body and how you need to place your legs. So let's do that again. So we're gonna scissor, we're gonna scoop, we're gonna grab, we're gonna place. We're going to bring it over to the other side, both hands, resist, come down to the side, and try and come up to your feet. Very good. So that would be the first progression into the hip key. One of the elements in the hip key that's very important is the straddle back. So in order to get a proper hip key, you've got to get a good straddle back. So I'm going to demonstrate that here. And for the straddle backs, you can technically do them with the fabrics apart or with them together on the side. And that's the way you want to do it for the purpose of learning your hip key, is on the side. All right, so I'm going to demonstrate that here. So both hands up, and you're going to lift, straddle those legs. So that would be your straddle back. In order to drill this, I'm going to show you what I want, and then I'm going to show you what you can do to progress into what I'm doing here. Straddle back, hollow body, straddle back, hollow body. You would do that as many times as you can, always trying to increase your number each round. If you can't quite do that yet, which most newbies cannot, and that's all right, I'm going to show you some things that you can try and do. If you can't quite do that yet, you can try and go, oh. Okay? That's kind of like a froggy lift. You just want to make sure the knees are coming forward instead of back. If you can't quite get that far, all you need to do is bring the legs forward and try and lift like that. Okay, so a lot of the weight is going to be in your hands and in your arms. All right, so you're just trying to get that little lift, because we're trying to target your hip flexors, your quads, your core, your transverse abdominal. So many that's in play there, okay? So the next thing that you're going to want to do after you've practiced all of those things and drill them, train them several times, and when I say several times, I mean like several hours. So that might mean you know, 8 to 16, 20 classes, like an hour-long class. All right? Just kind of depending on where you're starting from. So from there, you want to take the hip key to the air. So this time, we're going to do the same thing we did by scissoring our legs. But this time we're going to lift up in the air, okay? So now, the first progression into doing a hip key on the ground but in the air would be scissor, grab the fabric. Scissor, grab, okay? So really I call this a scoop, okay? That's called a scoop. So you're gonna scissor and scoop. All right? So that's all I wanna see first. Lift, scissor, scoop, okay? So now, you might have just saw me kind of spread my leg apart and kind of straddle. That's the next part, okay? So I kind of went ahead, kind of got ahead of myself. So let's go ahead, and now that you scoop it, now let's try and straddle. Straddle, okay? When you do that, you notice the fabric is kind of low, it stays down. Well, the fabric needs to get up here. And the way we do that is by doing that straddle back, okay? So what we're gonna do, we're gonna add a straddle back now. So let's just recap on those progressions first. So first, you're gonna scissor, scoop. Second progression, you're gonna scissor, scoop, straddle, or expand, extend. Now we're gonna straddle back. Okay? So when I did that, notice how the fabric went from my ankle to my hip when I straddle back. So after you straddle back and after you drill that over and over, because it's not gonna look like that at first, right? Like that was pretty nice, probably the way I just did it. It's not gonna look like that at first, I promise. And that's okay, right? So it might look kind of like this. Okay? So just trying to figure it out is what you want to work on first. That's why it's called progressing, okay? So it might look kind of like this. Okay? So whatever it is for you, just take grace with it and just know that the more you drill these progressions, it's gonna come, okay? It's like an aha moment. Okay, so now after the straddle back progression, now you would try and go sideways and then the meat hook. Okay, so this is what it's gonna look like. All the progressions together and side. So then you want to think about the come out, because we really do want to fan our legs and try and lift our hips, okay? So I'm going to demonstrate that here. From here, when you come out, you're going to bring your hands up high, try and twist around so you can kind of see. You're going to fan your legs to where they fan past this fabric. All right, so that is your technical progression into your hip key. So I'm going to show kind of a bonus exercise that you could do to really help that muscle that you really need for the hip key. All right, so what you're going to do is you're going to scissor your legs like normal, and this is a hip lift. You're going to hip lift, hip lift. So when I do that, I massively feel it right here in my transverse abdominal, in my oblique, okay, in my hip flexors. So it's really connecting those areas. So you want to think about scissor, hip lift, hip lift, hip lift. So I'm really lifting and crunching in right here. All right, so you want to do at least 10 each side. 3 rounds, and then you want to do a 4th round and do as many as you can without, going to failure. You want to go to failure. All right, Fly Tribe, so that is the progression into hip key. Dissect it out, work it out. I am going to plug down the PDF so that y'all can have a visual look at this as well. All right, good luck, and I will see y'all next time.